Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign DevStream. We're on DevStream number 2 this week. We're really excited to have everyone here again. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the Dev Diary, get a little bit of a tease of what we're going to be talking about. We have some awesome guests scheduled for the show today. We have some cool content. We're going to be deep diving about the world. We're going to be deep diving about history. I hope you guys are ready for a great time and a great ride. So some of the plans for the stream, we're going to start out kind of talking about the Dev Diary itself and kind of what we were discussing and why. We have our lovely guest Alex from last week on with us today, one of the designers on the game. So we'll have an awesome time talking with him. We have a new guest, Manol, who's going to be joining us. He's one of the historians and developer designers on the project. And then, of course, as always, we're going to wrap up with a nice Q&A session. So very, very excited to have you guys joining us today, and hopefully we're gonna have a lot of fun. So before we get right into it, I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. We're not having any kind of problems. Everything looks good on the stream side. Yes, looks like I hear a good yeses coming in. Awesome, all good. Now let's see here. Hopefully we've got some people joining in on the chat. I'm gonna just refresh my screen. I'm doing this kind of dual screen thing so I can see people in the channel and everything. Awesome, I see they can hear us great, so it's great to hear. So Alex, welcome back to the stream.
Hi, I'm very glad to be here and that we're doing our second dev stream. It will be awesome.
Yes. So how was your I know a lot of us just got back from our holiday breaks and kind of getting right back in the stream of things. How was your holiday? Did you do anything exciting for the New Year's and the holiday break?
I'll be totally honest with you, and I did nothing exciting, just read some books, some family time, and we work a lot here, so I needed some rest, and yeah.
Yeah, I know. We just finished a really big milestone right before the holiday break. How was the milestone push there at the end? The milestone turned out great. But I'm sure you needed some rest afterwards.
Yeah, it was exhausting, but we could have a good rest knowing that everything went so well.
Yeah, great. Well, we have an awesome dev diary to talk about here today, right? I really enjoyed what you guys wrote. Why don't you give us kind of a little bit of summary about, kind of at a high level, what is this dev diary about? Like, why are we talking about the world? What is this?
Starting with the world the game is in, that's pretty much the heart of the game. So it's very important for the gameplay, for the immersion of the players, and it's quite the place to start, I think. So it's very important.
Right, but it's interesting because I feel like when I read the diary, it kind of includes a couple different things. It's about this like the size of the world, and I know we've talked a lot about how big should the world be, how big should provinces be, where are things located. But there's also this conversation point about what time it is. Like when in the world are we? Not just where, but when.
Of course. It's the big picture is the combination between the geographical part and the time periods, of course. And in this dev diary, people can read for the both parts of that. So it's not just the size, but it's also how granulated are the provinces. How many provinces we have, and so on.
Absolutely.
That's important stuff.
You know, I think it's been, watching as we've gone through development, there have been so many different like iterations on, okay, well, are we going to be this big or that big? And I know not even like I think it was like 5 or 6 months ago, we even changed the size of the world yet again as we've been refining. Honestly, and we didn't talk about this in the dev diary, but some of the other features that we've been working on have driven needing to kind of relook at the shape of the world. I think specifically when we got into the religion feature set, and we're like, man, if we want to make all of the religions interesting, we really need to think about, where those religions lived in the world and how we make those different parts of the world make that experience as rich as it can be, depending on what religion you decide to play. So it's been a very, honestly, kind of organic conversation as features have driven the size. So maybe we should just start off right away with this era, this time period. What time period? I know this in the dev diary, so but for the people who haven't read it, what time period was this this game taking place in?
So we have 3 time periods for now, and the first one is in the beginning of the 12th century. It's about 1100, and that's the place where the time when the crusade starts. So it's very thematical for our game, and it's after the forming of England, and it's very interesting. The second period is let's call it the time of the Latin Empire. So it's right after Byzantium is gone temporarily, when Constantinople is overtaken by the Latins, and it's very dynamic ages in political aspects, a lot of wars and territorial advantages of some countries, forming of new nations, and so on. So it's also very, very interesting, and then of course we have the Mongols coming in from the east. And now we have more focus on that part also when we expanded the world to the east. So it will be a part of this, and the third period is pretty much similar to the third period we have in the previous game, and it's about the middle of the 14th century, and we have then the Ottomans. We have Byzantium restored, and great. Thanks.
Awesome. So a little bit off topic, and you know what? I am going to. I owe our audience something, and I just realized that with the I'm going to blame it on the holidays. You know, fireworks and New Year's Eve. It's 2020, so I have a New Year's resolution to. I forgot that I owed everyone a video of the flying fish, and and I know someone remembered. Of course, it's always that way. It's always that way when you're like, oh no. We talked about this last stream, but it was before the holiday break, and of course holidays, and your brain kind of becomes mush, and then we get back into the stream of everything, and I'm like, oh no. So here, I promise you, and I know our production company is helping us with the streams today. They're going to hold me to it, and we will put it on the very next dev stream. First thing we show before we even get to the topic, we're gonna get the flying fish in there. I am a little bit ashamed. It's funny, like as soon as I saw it was Jagan HQ Horror 64 mentioned it, I'm going, like how? So we'll get a video of the flying fish. We'll get that done.
Definitely.
For sure. So we were talking about kind of the eras a little bit here, and a few people asked, is it gonna be mostly high Middle Ages? So is that where you classify it? Is high Middle Ages the kind of the way that you talk about it?
It's latent high Middle Ages. We don't have so early periods as in the previous game, because we had I think the beginning of the 11th century there. And now we decided we should focus more on the later periods.
Okay.
So it means a bit less pagans to the north. There are some changes, but I think these three periods are actually better.
Awesome. So last week we talked about during last stream again, we were talking a little bit about one of those pillars. We had that one pillar that was about historical accuracy being important, but we wanted gameplay to be kind of the leading direction for us. And so in those situations where those two things were kind of in conflict, gameplay was going to win. So can you talk a little bit about how that works when it comes to kind of the shape of the world? We have these different time periods. They have different provinces and territory sizes, and definitely gameplay impacts is impacted by territory size and distance between territories quite a bit. So can you talk a little bit about how things like territory size or the shape of the world have been influenced by the gameplay needs versus trying to be as historically accurate as we can be? It's a big question.
It's a quite hard question, right? First, for the part where we put fun above accuracy, there are some. For example, we have exact year for each period. but we have the freedom to shift it a bit more for specific regions if you want to make them more interesting, to capture a more interesting instance in time. And in different periods, of course, we have different kingdoms and different missions of the kingdoms, of course, which also gives the player a chance to immerse in more situations, and we'll also have different achievements and goals for the kingdoms. And yeah, I think it brings a lot to the game compared to just a single period in time.
I think when reading the dev diary, I thought it was very interesting when you talked about things like the Sahara Desert, which, I mean, it's a very geographically important thing. But when you think about a game like Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign, you know, moving troops to a very large desert is not really that interesting gameplay-wise.
Exactly.
And you know, it's obviously still there, and we have these ideas of these desert spaces, but you know, it's you have to kind of think through opportunities for fun gameplay and how you kind of blend that. I thought that was are there other examples like that other than the Sahara Desert where you're looking at it and going, well, maybe we need to have a little bit of liberty here to make the game fun?
The religion module was a big game changer for us, looking over the world, because we just didn't feel that the Muslim kingdoms and having this whole opposition between Christians and Muslims is well represented in the game. So we clearly needed to expand. How could we not have Saudi Arabia? This section of the map, the peninsula. So we clearly needed to increase the map. And regarding where do we cut? We just played with some southern kingdoms, and the vast distances. It was, oh my God, we have to not to make that large there, because
sometimes it takes a while to go a long distance, right?
So somebody declares war to you, and you have to travel to their province in 10 minutes. It's
right.
Terrible.
Right. Yeah, it's not. That's. I mean, it may have been like that, and there's some influences there, but it was not very fun.
And it's not like there are not many interesting kingdoms and history in Africa, for example. There are actually, but we have to cut it somewhere and fine-tune the gameplay. So that was our angle. It's gameplay.
You know, I saw one question from Romka 080794 about when we're going to be showing more gameplay. So today we have a lot of concept art. Gameplay is something we're going to be releasing over time. It's a little bit tricky because the game is, as you're probably getting from some of these streams, we're very much in development right now. So it'd be like if someone was building a house and you tried to show them the house while it was being at the foundation stage or even the scaffolding stage. There's not really much of a house yet. It's just, in some places, it's just pieces of wood sticking up and things that don't even make sense quite yet. So as we go forward, obviously I've committed to the flying fish, so we're going to show that next stream. We are going to be over time introducing more things that we're going to be showing, but we're very early on in our dev streams. We're trying to give you guys an opportunity to learn about lots about the game over time and bring you into this development process with us as we're kind of talking about these core features, and we're going to keep on getting more and more specific and showing more and more of the game as we get closer. But even like when it comes to developing a game, concept art is one of the first things you start with, so we get to show off a lot of the really cool concept art that the team has put together.
The thing is that the game is we have so much developed, and we are playing even in multiplayer very long time now, but we keep so much things open that we want to be able to change even to the last minute, and that's why we are very afraid not to show something that will change later on. So we are very careful with that stuff.
Sometimes people get excited about a certain thing, and then if it gets changed or moved, they get upset. We need, that makes a lot of sense. So we were talking about these different periods. Do you have a personal favorite, like one that you like more than the others?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Definitely, it's the middle one, because as I mentioned in the previous dev stream, I like to play with Bulgaria a lot, and
I wonder why.
Yeah, right. And here with the Latin Empire and the split of Byzantium into several kingdoms, it's just a crazy period. And my favorite king, Tsar Kauyan, rules at that time, and it's just awesome period. And I love it. I have even created a board game about that period. So
oh wow,
yeah, right.
So I mean, definitely, you definitely have a favorite. You're definitely playing favorites a little bit there.
There's a lot of religious games also between the Orthodox and the Catholic at that point of the history. So that's also interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, there was a question showing up in the because you're talking about making a board game about kind of the things that you were important to you and how you have your favorites. And there's a question from one of the people in the stream. Weintraub Soul, I think. I'm trying to use the Vine instead of wine. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Okay. But he asks, they're going to be multiplayer Europe mods. So I'm not going to talk about how mods could influence multiplayer, but it's something we talked about a lot in this dev diary. And I think if people are interested in that, hopefully there's some good new information. We are 100% supporting mods. It's really important to us. It's been there from the beginning. So if you have your favorite time of history or your favorite lay of the land, we're going to have these tools available for people to create these interesting maps and layouts and whatnot. And I think that's going to be fun for people, I hope.
Yeah, okay. There are some limitations. Some of the tools we're using for the map will be just in-house, but we will provide a lot of power to the modders, a lot of power. And of course, modded games will be fully playable in multiplayer, of course.
Yeah. Yep. So that's gonna be a lot of fun for you guys to kind of experiment and try different things. And I always love that stuff. I actually, in another life, there was a game that I was a big fan of and actually, helped, put together and with other people kind of support a mod community around a particular game. And it's so much fun seeing what people come up with. I know with the original Knights of Honor, you had people coming up with these large, huge maps and all different parts of history and whatnot. And that's, I don't know, we're excited about seeing what the community does with these things as we release them. Now, speaking about like large, huge maps, what do we got a lot of comments about how big is the map. We talked about like the size geographically, like in a way, like we talked about the different territories, but when it comes to actually the gameplay size of the map, how do you compare that to say the original Knights of Honor? Is it bigger? Is it much bigger? Is it like, what is kind of the scale we're talking about here?
For me, it's much bigger. Because the difference is not that we've included just some more territories. It's not a little difference; it's a big difference, but it's even bigger because we have more provinces in all regions. So I compared the number of provinces, and it's about double. And,
oh wow!
And you feel it like this when you play. So right. It's much bigger.
It's when I was reading some of the responses on the dev diary, which we love the people that come and give some commentary on the dev diary, gives us some stuff to talk about during the streams. There was some responses that were about how they felt like the Knights of Honor 1, the world was of a size where you could conquer it pretty quickly. So it feels like double the province numbers is probably going to take a little bit longer to handle that much if you want to paint the map with your color, so to speak.
Definitely, it feels bigger, I can guarantee you. And if you want to unite a kingdom, for example, you have to conquer more provinces. So this also makes the unite quests bigger in a sense. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So one last thing I wanted to ask you about, and this kind of connects to the mods we were talking about before. We did show a couple of examples of those tools in the dev diary, and I find the tools really fascinating. Are there other cool tools aside from just that kind of auto territory manipulating one that maybe you could talk about that give some of our fans, some exposure to what's happening underneath the hood, like how we're building these games?
I can give some examples for tools. For example, we have developed a tool for painting the map heights with a brush, and then this is transformed into actual terrain. But it's a very awesome tool which connects with the other tools we use. for example, the tool which generates the borders of the provinces.
Right.
I have one very cool GIF from that tool, how it expands and the provinces connect to each other and define their borders. But we'll have to double check if we can show this, because it's very
that would
I think we will be able, but yeah.
Okay.
Maybe in the beginning of the next stream after the fish. And right.
That's a great. No, that's awesome. I love that. Maybe in the next Dev Diary or on the forums we can create a post and we want to start showing some of this stuff. So we'll find a way to get that out. That's really cool.
Yeah. Because it looks awesome. It's one thing to explain it and another thing to show it. It's how it works. It's step-by-step expansion. It's very nice.
Awesome.
We have one enormous and very precise tool for generation of paths. And it takes in account a lot of things, terrain, settlements, and so on. The whole, every road and the actual pathfinding depends on that. So it's very important, hugely important.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And this tool is now we just if we make some changes, we just run it. We have tools for automatic placement of settlements, which take in consideration several things. For example, how big is a province, some other stuff. Of course, I don't want the people also to think that everything will be procedurally generated. We start from there, and we then refine everything. We move things around. Of course, it's not magic, but it helps a lot. Really.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's this is a little bit of developer talk. Automation is something that you can use to kind of do bulk tasks or bulk changes faster and easier. But I mean, it takes months and months and months of work. We're still doing it, working on these maps after you get the tools run. The tools just save you a lot of the tedious time, but then the crafting, the artistry comes in to really bring the world to life and get things set up. And there was a question that I saw on this in the chat. I'm going to go back and try to see who it was. Someone was asking about kind of the map mod kit, and if we were going to include a map mod kit. And I think I don't think it was Massive 90. So thank you for that question, Massim. And I think it's going to be how we're going to release these mod tools, and whether it be a map editor or just certain things exposed, is still something we're trying to work out, because we want to make sure we give a lot of power but not make it like you're building a game from scratch. So there's going to be a collection of tools and editor type things you're going to be able to use, but I don't know if it's going to be a complete every single like you mentioned earlier, Alex. It's not going to be everything. It's going to be a set of things. However, I do think that the way we're going to approach it, if you want to build, I think you said in chat, if you want to build Westeros, you can do that. You can go make a map of Westeros and play Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign in that world. So we're going to have enough support for you to do those kind of things. At least that's the plan. That's the target for us. Yeah.
I really believe that we'll also improve these tools as even after the game is released. We'll continue to give more power to the modders. So
awesome.
But I really can't say what will be the exact set at the moment. Of course, it's very complex.
We have a lot of game to make, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us for the first segment. We're going to bring in Manoa here for a second, and then we're going to have Alex back, everybody. You're going to get to see him again. He's going to come back and join us for some Q&A a little bit later. All righty. Thank you very much. While we're transitioning, why don't we go ahead and put a little bit of excitement and love in the chat. We're really glad all of you guys are joining us. It's awesome to have this audience coming in and joining this time as we're exploring Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign. And like we've said, we get all of this this stuff in segments, so don't be nervous or worried if you're like, oh, when am I going to see gameplay, or when do we talk about this? Every single week we're going to talk about different topics, and you're going to have a lot of cool things that we show as development of the game keeps going. So we hope you're loving the time and the exposure of how we're developing this game, and we're really excited that you decided to join us today. So welcome our new guest today. This is the first time, Manoa. Thank you for joining us today. Excellent. Say hi to everybody in the chat. And so why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? I know that this is your first time on our dev streams. So you are a historian and game designer, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into being a historian? It's a very fascinating discipline.
It's maybe the greatest discipline, at least according to me, of course. I'm a medievalist.
You're a little biased, though.
I think so, yes, you're right. Quite perceptive. So, well, history is the teacher of nations, as my colleagues would say. Or maybe it's not, but we still say it. And what could a historian do? Many things, but making a game is like making history change. It's like becoming a fantasy author. Because we know how history went, we know how it ended with us, or how it continues with us. But what if? We should ask ourselves, what if? What if the Byzantines survived? What if the medieval Bulgarian kingdom survived? What if the Lithuanians never accepted Catholicism? What if you make it?
Yeah. So what was what got you into history? I mean, obviously I think you probably have a natural passion for it, but was there this like particular period or thing that just kind of made you go, man, like history is my thing. That's what I love.
First, reading. Secondly, Middle Ages, especially in more specific, the Middle Ages are romantic. They're formative. There are, of course, knights, battles, crusades, the plague, and you make it again. Because there is everything in the Middle Ages. As there was this movie, Kingdom of Heaven. What is it worth? Nothing. Everything. And that's it.
You have a little bit of acting too, huh? Look at that. You have the everything.
No, that's the history teacher thing.
Yeah. So I think it's been really, I think it's an awesome treat for us that you've joined the team, because as we've talked about in our last Dev Diary, and we're going to talk about, I think, through the adventure we're all going on together of how this game is coming and being made. Though we're a game first, we do really want to, like you said, have it be that history come to life that then you can craft and kind of have as that sandbox, that playground. So it's awesome that you someone who is such a student, a teacher,
such a nerd.
Oh, well, okay. To come in and help us and inform us in these things, because it feels like there's infinite things to know, even about one specific time in history. So it's very daunting. It's awesome that you're here. So I heard that you played maybe a little bit of Knights of Honor, like you were a Knights of Honor fan, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So what got you into
hours of my life lost?
1,000 hours, right? So what got you? And before you even thought about joining a video game team, I imagine, right? You were just a fan that played games. What attracted you to Knights of Honor? Why did you play it for 1,000 hours?
Many kingdoms, such a patchwork of tiny little realms, princedoms, dukedoms, empires, and everything like that. You take a little province, a single province. You take a small castle. You're almost besieged, because sometimes you start with 2 or 3 enemies. It's difficult to survive, and then you paint the map your color. And
did you have like a specific kingdom that you like to paint the map with? Or did you have your own fan?
The Mediterranean kingdoms, all of them. You take,
oh wow!
Yeah, you take Spain, the first period of the previous game. That's in fact it's Catalonia, or you take Sicily in any period. Or you take Aragon, that's almost Catalonia with several more provinces. Or you take Athens, the Duchy of Athens. Or Jerusalem, why not? Although it's difficult with Jerusalem. Or you may take another maritime small kingdom like Trebizond, for example. A really tiny realm on the eastern coast of the Black Sea. You start difficulty, but then you make a maritime empire. That's a great challenge, and that makes you enormously rich. Because, the sea brings riches. It's great. I would be really, I hope we'll make Africa good now, because I'd like to play, not only to make, but to play also with some desert power this time.
Yeah, it's very true. It's an exciting, I think, additional aspect of what we're trying to attack with Knights of Honor 2, and adding a little bit more Ostrom there. That's cool. So, so obviously you are a gamer, and now you're, helping and working us make games, as well as being a historian nerd. What other kind of games do you play or like? Do you mainly play history games? Is that your thing?
Maybe I will not surprise you too much by saying Total War series.
Okay.
And of course, Crusader Kings, Shogun, that's Total War again.
Yeah.
I adore Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that we go from history to magic spells and everything. You have a couple different. Yeah. Okay, very, very cool.
I believe fantasy starts from history.
Yeah, very
First
true.
You have a real kingdom, and then you have Gondor or Skyrim or something like that.
Oh man, awesome. So we talked a little bit about the 3 periods that we've picked. and
Yeah.
you have a very exciting perspective being historian. So from a historical perspective, what are some of like the unique stories that show why these three periods are so special? And I know it's a big question, so we just pick one or two, but it'd be awesome to hear like when you think about these times. And I know even in the dev diary there were comments about how like this territory had a very important place in this period, and this is why it's such a unique time set frame for us to pick or whatever, or whatever. Anyways, I'm not gonna. Do you have any of those kind of cool stories you could share with us about why this is cool?
I think so. Yes. Well, it's a grand strategy game. So maybe one of the most important things of it is warfare. We don't want any warfare in our everyday lives, but when we play games, we want much of it.
Right. You're painting the map, right?
Yeah, exactly. Red for preference. And sorry. So we have something like a narrative, a historical narrative, which is revealed by the three starting maps. The slow advance of the Spanish Reconquista, for example.
Okay.
Also, the changing political landscape on the Baltic Sea, the recess of the pagans, and the advance of Catholicism, and also the changing map of the Middle East, Near East, around Jerusalem, of course, centered around the Crusades. So in the first period, by AD 1100, we start with a tiny Catholic Europe and an enormous and inimical world against it, so to say. Then by 1224, it's a little bit different. Now the Crusades have started and their first act has finished. So Europe has expanded and then it lost again some territories. And the third period is the beginning of the Ottoman Invasion, which will change Southeastern Europe for, well, maybe even it has its influence even now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Is there I think it was, I always found when I played Knights of Honor, there were the original one, at least there was these very I found how like the naming and the location of certain things and the size of certain kingdoms in certain territories, it was kind of fun watching them be dramatically different in different eras. So is there like like as an example, or do you have an example of a place where it's like in one era it's a really small kingdom, in another era it's a really big kingdom, and there's different challenges depending on which era you pick if you're playing in that part of the world?
Well, my country is such an example. Bulgaria changes during the Middle Ages. You start with for example, in the previous game with the big kingdom of Tsar Samuel, King Samuel. Then you end in the third period with three small provinces divided between each other, and no one of these is initially able to unite the kingdom.
Oh, okay.
So you have these changes. The previous game started also with a little bit of a retrospective on the British Isles. You started with three Anglo-Saxon kingdoms.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And then you have the big Angevin Empire of the Plantagenets. So it changes. Cool.
Yeah. I found it fascinating when we were referencing this idea that, talking about territories having different sizes in different places. There was this comment about, historians sometimes, it was a long time ago, and some of the records are not always so clear, I imagine sometimes. So there was these arguments about the specifics of how big a territory was, or the state of ownership, or anything like that. And record keeping, it's not like I can just put in a flash drive and grab the map from 15 or 12 or whatever and just see what it looked like. So are there a couple of examples of these territorial sizes or ownerships that are highly debated by historians for the areas that we're talking about?
Yes, we have to make some decisions, but we try to do our best not to make things up. So we are trying to rely on good references, on respected colleagues of mine, of course.
Okay.
We must not avoid that. And also, sometimes there is really interesting published materials about archaeology. Let's say you're not sure if any, for example, a small fortress on the coast of the Mediterranean was Genoese or Sicilian at the specific moment, but then you find an article which says that there are some coins from some power, medieval power, found there, and you can make something like a supposition that it was that power's fortress by that moment.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it makes sense. So what's the, is there and I can appreciate that. Sometimes we have to make decisions. You try to make them with the best. What's an example of a decision that was kind of tough for us to make? like one where like the information is a little bit contentious and you're kind of having to pick among a number of different experts that are trying to, yeah.
Northeastern Europe and West Africa. These are the
Okay.
most complicated places during the Middle Ages, because sometimes borders between local authorities, local powers, were not well defined. During the Middle Ages, borders were not always just lines. They were sometimes spaces, border regions, two-dimensional, not one-dimensional, and sometimes even whole towns were in a borderland, and you don't know, we don't know, I don't know where exactly was the border, who was the king of that town. We're not always sure, so we sometimes guess for those specific regions.
Okay. Is there a location or a territory or what, like a specific thing where it's like you're on this camp and there's probably some people that are on another camp and we're like making a choice to be on your camp or something? I know I'm kind of looking for like the historical drama. Like where is is there one? It's almost like it's like watching the like two debaters or two fighters sitting there going, oh, mine's right or mine's right. What's an example of that? I'm curious.
There is a ridiculous number of Russian dukedoms, principalities in northeastern Europe, for example, by 1212 and 24.
Okay.
But sometimes you have to choose between the more important principalities, because some of those were a little bit, not much more than a municipality which rules itself. So, for example, shall we include the town of Uglitch on our map, or shall we not? We don't know. Shall we? What would you say?
Okay. So why is it? What is the debate on whether it existed or not, or is the debate on?
Was it important, rather?
Was it important? Okay.
Yeah, because you cannot. If you put, for example, Anjou or Normandy or some region of that sort on the map, maybe you should include even smaller regions, smaller entities, political entities.
Right. Well, I imagine especially because in certain parts of the world, even though globally they might have not had as much of an impact, in that area the impact could have been very pronounced. And so for people that are from that culture or know a lot about that culture, they know the history of that particular town and maybe things that happened there, and that's important to them.
That's the gamer's expectation that your specific culture is known to the developers. If my country is not well represented on the map, then the developers know nothing.
That's very true. It's very, very true.
So
for that particular town you were speaking of, where are we? Which side are we on right now? I mean, I know we're still building the game, but are we keeping it? Are we not? Do you have a?
Personally, I prefer to include more exotic places. So you might think that, of course, I couldn't possibly comment.
Awesome. Well, we're still making some of these decisions. So, right, some of them are going to happen when the game comes out. And if you want your town on there, you can always mod it in, right? You can always take the mod tool and add it in yourself.
Of course.
So before we go back to Alex and start taking some random Q&A, I have a couple like random personal questions because I'm also getting to know you. Everyone's getting to know you. So one I asked last week to Alex, and I was just random. So do you have any pets? Are you a pet guy?
Yes, I do have 2 dogs.
You have 2 dogs. What breeds?
Yeah, a spaniel and a straw dog.
Oh, okay.
Stray dog. Yeah.
A stray dog. Okay.
Stray
and
dog.
Are these dogs like are they best friends? Are they not really sure about each other? Like what's the dynamic between the two?
They live together. It's like it's not exactly like Byzantium and the Ottomans. But
nice.
They manage.
Look at that reference. I like that. Yeah.
They manage.
They manage. It's like siblings, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny. Which one of the dogs is most excited when you get home?
Both of them, of course. I bring the food.
Both of them. Oh,
Yeah.
Right. Okay. The bringer of food. I also was asking Alex about kind of the holiday break and New Year's celebrations or anything. Did you do anything like interesting or fun for New Year's?
Yeah, I trolled a bunch of people who were pretending they're reenacting a very old pagan ritual in Bulgaria, which was not the case. So I trolled them. It was fun.
Oh man, what is your take on do they do like, as I know every culture has different things. Are there a lot of fireworks and stuff in Bulgaria? Like is New Year's a big fire? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
There are, yes. Fireworks are quite popular, especially during New Year's Eve. Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's see if we have any. So before Manol takes away from us, if anyone has any history questions that you want to ask an expert, now is the time to drop them in chat. I'm going to ask there's a couple of questions that were kind of related, but I'm going to grab them. So a few of them were asking about religion and we had one guy saying about, I think it was Tring. Sometimes hard to pronounce Twitch names. Tring Ting Lol. I'm gonna go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, he asked, not having played the first one, how important are religious choices in the game? And it's something that is very critical in this era, and we're spending a lot of effort exploring how not only religion is going to be used. I mean, obviously it's a game, so there's going to be a lot of gameplay elements associated with religion, bonuses, and things that are going to happen based on how you support them. But it's also but there's also a lot about how like we talked about before, and even like I think it was like 7 or 8 months ago, there was a big discussion related to this dev diary, which is we're adding the religion feature in the kind of the first pass of it. We're trying to get the shape of it, and we're realizing that some religions don't have enough provinces or territories to really balance out the equation when you look at the world. And we really need to think through, do we want to grow the size of the map in order to include those things? So I think to answer your question, Ting Ting Lol, it really was it is an important thing for us. We are spending a lot of time thinking through how they're going to be used. There are different gameplay elements that are going to be related to religion, and we're going to be talking about that in much more detail on a stream that's a little bit later on. So excited about talking about that. Let's see. Let's see if there's another question we can take here. So another question I've seen, which is Krill I'm going to slaughter this name. Kirill Mikhailov, I think. The question says, speaking of history, the old game had 2 types of Christianity, Islam, and paganism. What religions of KOH2 have? We'd love to have Jewish aspects. I think it's kind of an open-ended question. We're not talking about which religions we're adding quite yet, so we'll have that information for a little bit of stream. But I think there's going to be some. There's. I can tell you this: the religious aspects of Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign are going to be a lot, much more interesting, and there's going to be more gameplay elements around them than there was in the first game. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun exploring them and playing them, and we're excited about talking them a little bit later. So before we wrap up here today, Manol, do you have anything else you want to share with the team about this dev diary and things that you think would be interesting for them to know?
Well, yes, we've tried to make the military part of it more interesting and to include more units, more historically accurate units, which I hope will make a deeper dimension of historical interest, battle interest, and also could be a political changer. You could find the units, the exact set of units to paint the map, but it also asks a little bit of role play. So every game should be slightly different than the others, even if you play with the same region, the same country in the same period.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we've talked about that a little bit, where it's like once the game starts, it's a historical setting for a historical sandbox. So once that game starts, things kind of go in different directions, and like
starts as history, continues as we don't know what.
Right, and every time can be it's both. I think like both with the AI decisions that the AI makes, as well as the decisions that you make and how it influences it. And that's almost part of the fun, where you don't really know what's going to happen, and those decisions really do change the way the map and everything evolves. So super cool. Well, Manol, thank you so much for joining us today. Really big pleasure, and we're looking forward to having you on a future stream. So thank you very much. So we're going to bring Alex back on here for some questions. While Alex is getting in the hot seat, we're going to go ahead and show you guys a little bit of a gameplay clip. This is one that many of you have seen, but if anyone is not familiar with the game, this is kind of a look of what the world looks like. We're talking about
hand-selected royal court to execute your will, drive strategic decisions,
the size of the world,
and forging alliances with
and how we're building that. And we're really excited to give you some glimpses of kind of what the world looks like. So this is not new footage. I know some of you guys have already seen it, but still it's a nice way to show you kind of what this world is like. And as we're doing this, we have Alex back joining us, one of our game designers.
Hey guys, again.
Yeah, awesome. And we're excited to maybe ask a couple questions. Oh, I'm seeing it.
direct control
Loud.
and jump right into action. Commanding your unit in RTS style.
I think we lose the audio feed for a second. Let's see. Oh, we're back. Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's like whenever we put the gameplay footage on, I think the mix changes a little bit. So no worries. So we're gonna take some questions from the forums. We are now open for any types of questions. If you have ones about this dev stream, awesome. If you have other questions you want to ask that are about anything, we probably may not answer them, but you can still ask them and we'll bring them up. So the first one I'm going to grab is from the forums, and it's let's see, it's from Ivory Knight. And I think actually Fusion answered this, but I think it's important to kind of ask it during the stream. So Ivory Knight said, you mentioned that provinces do not have defined sizes nor strengths. Being this is the case, are provincial borders going to be dynamic or static in the game? So will the player be given the ability to expand or shrink the provincial borders of a certain province, or are provincial borders locked for the entirety of the game?
There was a small misunderstanding about that question. If we are talking about a specific province, it has a constant size. So in each game, each period, and during the game, it's the same size. But comparing one province to another, there are huge differences. We have very small and very large provinces at the same time. So yeah, but they do not vary during the game. And one small thing is that you can lose control of, for example, of a stronghold, of a keep in the province, and thus you lose a part of it.
It's also interesting to say though, and we're still, a lot of this is still things that we're experimenting with, but we're also talking about maybe adding some dynamicism into what is in each of those provinces. So when you play from map to map to map, if you play the game again in a certain age, you may find some things that are a little bit different. But like you said, the provincial borders themselves, they don't change. They're static.
Yeah. Everything inside the province, for example, what settlements, resources, and so on it has, it's different each game. But the province size itself, it's constant.
Yep. So another question from the forums. I love seeing the forums get some activity. By the way, if you haven't joined the community, it's community.knightsofhonor.com. We'd love to have you join. All of our dev diaries get posted there. We're trying to post them once every 2 or 3 weeks, and we take questions from the forums and we answer them there, and we also answer them on the stream. So if you want to go and join that community, we'd love to have you be a part of it. So we have Terrari, I think, Triarii. I don't know how you pronounce that. I saw someone saying they're going to clip all of my my slaughterings of the stream pronunciation, so that'll be a fun highlight clip. I don't know if I want to see that. Terrari from the forums asks, will Europe be bigger than Knights of Honor 1? Though I would like to see a bigger Europe with more cities and provinces. It felt so easy and quick to concert England, for example. So what are your comments on that?
We covered that earlier on. It's about gameplay wise, it has double the number of provinces, and for England, let's talk more about the Britain Isles. It's about 50% more provinces. It's a rough number, but it gives a general comparison between the two games.
Awesome.
It's more dense. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a couple of questions from the stream here. So I think we have, so let's see, a geography question. So, oh man. well, a geography about the game world, I think, question. And man, you guys do not make this job easy when it comes to these names on Twitch. My goodness. So we have Ian Turi, I think. Oh, goodness gracious. So the question is, so it's going to be Mongols on the edge of the maps, I guess. So is we gonna have? Is that how it's to be set up?
Are we going to have Mongols?
Yeah, the question is kind of like, so is it going to be Mongols kind of on the edge of the map? Is that kind of what the thought is there?
It's we can say that we don't have the complete Mongol territory, of course, but it's not just the edge of the map. It depends on which period, of course, but they have a considerable territory.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then T Chemist asks, Brad, you mentioned China during announcement stream. Anything to say? The answer is important to new models for Chinese and my culture. I guess the Kazakh culture. So I don't think we're actually going to have China, but we're going to have some territories that are connected to China pretty close, right? So influences from that part of the kind of the Asian world.
Yeah, we don't go so deep in Asia. It's just pretty much the Middle East to some point, but no, it was very hard decision.
Yeah. We talked about some of those things quite a bit because it's one of those things where you can keep on growing the world, but
Yeah,
as you make the world larger and larger, does the gameplay really fit the size of that? All of that
exactly.
said, like we mentioned a number of times in the stream, there's lots of mod tools. So if you want to go and use the Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign gameplay and create a map that you want to play on and show those with people, then you have a lot of opportunities to make different parts of the world and hang out there and explore.
That's true.
That's true. So really awesome there. Another question that I've seen from a couple of different people are asking about the plague. Burger Flipper asks, are there catastrophes like the plague or floods? And can you counteract them via buildings or governors? I saw another question from someone about plague pieces. So I'll take that one, Alex. We've talked a little bit about dynamic events. It's a little bit unknown if we're going to end up having some of them or any of those feature aspects in Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign at the start. There's definitely been some design discussion on how they could work. I can tell you though, and this is something that is a commitment from us, our plan is not just to release this game and go away. Our plan is to release this game and then support it. And that could be in the shape of DLC. It could be in the shape of free patch releases with features. Those are things that we're still trying to work out and figure out. So no commitments or comments on that. I think I've gotten the DLC question like 100 times now. But I can tell you that there are features that we plan to continue to explore and add. So some of these things, are kind of talked about in the team, and we're going to see which ones make the cut as we're going through production. And then as we release the game, there may be other opportunities for us to do cool things there too. So nothing to comment on there yet, but we're still.
Can I add up something small? We have a preparation for such events, large list of things, and they are not. Some of them are historically based. Some of them are just cool events to happen.
Random things, yeah.
And yeah, it's still unclear, but I hope one day, sooner or later, they will be in the game.
Excellent. So let's see if we have a couple other questions here from the chat. So let's see. Asiak, Asiak, that's another name I can't pronounce very well. I need to get like a Twitch name pronunciation lessons. Are we limited as to who we can play? So what do you think, Alex? Are you limited to who you can play?
No, you can be everything you want to be.
It sounds like a self-motivation. You can be everything you want to be. Just be you. No, I love it.
It's a very philosophical question.
I want that as a clip. I want the Alex motivational clip. Oh no, you can be everything you want to be. That's it right there.
You can play with the kingdoms that were present in those periods, in those parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa, and you can also play as provinces which were not kingdoms at that time. They were never independent, but you can still play them as an independent kingdom, province, or expand it and start with a larger province. We'll talk more about this definitely later on. There are a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, and it's we definitely have to make some decisions on how big the world is or how many provinces we have, but of the ones that we've decided on, which are quite a lot, you said over at least double of what was in the first game, you can explore being any of those. It is an open sandbox for all of that, so that's very exciting for you.
You cannot play with the papacy.
Right. But like you said, you can be everything you want to be. I love it.
Except the papacy.
Yeah, right. Oh, no, don't say that. Just stick with the motivation. You're doing great. All right, so let's see another question here. We have Mazum90 asks, will the building and martial slots be increased compared to KOH 1? So we're not talking about how many slots we're going to have for the Royal Court yet. However, nice sneak preview and a good segue. Alex, what do you have a little bit of a tease on what maybe our next dev diary could be about? Like, is that no?
Yeah, right. In the next dev diary, we'll talk more about the royal courts and the dynamics between the king, the knights, and every possibilities you have in the game. Without going too deep in the different classes, but you'll see the general picture and what's kept, what's new. I think it will be very, very nice.
Yeah. The royal court is such a central part of this franchise,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we're really excited. It's going to be something that we're going to talk about for a very long time. So there's so much to talk about this feature, and honestly, a lot of that's still being adjusted and changed and iterated on. But the next week, or the next week, the next stream, which is going to be about 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to dive into the royal court for the first time. So that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
The Urban Master asks, will there be changing seasons of the year?
So far, no. We'll
Right.
not have different seasons because it seems interesting, but on a global scale, it's too much work. We can put more interesting stuff, investing that time in development of further features. Maybe one day in DLCs and so on, we can put seasons and effects from the seasons. But in the beginning, no.
It's interesting because I remember Veso talked about this a little bit during the announcement stream that we did back at Gamescom, and it's a little bit of a trick because we unlike some other games that are in this space, we don't show what year it is. We don't show the passage of time. We don't show how long the years go, and a lot of that's actually on purpose because we don't want to solidify in the player's mind this sense of like
True.
long eras of time going by. Like this is a sandbox experience that's in an era, in a space of time, and so you can live your wildest fantasies that are existing inside this medieval world, but it's not something where time is continuing to necessarily like progress on a year-to-year basis. So there's a little bit of abstraction there, and that's done somewhat on purpose. That said, I know we have had a couple of discussions about things like, okay, is there ways that we can add different seasonal elements in the game, like you said, that we can maybe
weather effects and so on. It's possible.
But I know right now that is not planned for the first release of the game, so that's something we'll maybe explore later on, depending on how things go. I know I think we've answered this before, but it's a good question to ask again. Grand Flouden asks, how many realms will the map have? We've said before, we're not committing to a certain number quite yet because as we've talked about, it's an iterative process where we're setting different layouts of territories and realms, and then we're play testing and we're trying and we're messing with things and balancing, and that may end up evolving a little bit. But as Alex has said a number of times, there's a little over or a little around double of what we had in Knights of Honor, so you can kind of expect that as far as like size or number of these things, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of options in there.
Yeah, hundreds.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see here. I think that almost brings us to the end of our dev stream here. It's been so much fun chatting with you, Alex. It's been awesome to
have
you on this stream.
Fun.
Yeah, are you enjoying it? You're enjoying it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What's not to enjoy it?
Yeah. Well, hey, you don't have to try to pronounce the names, so I mean, you get one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier on our side, but I'm trying to figure out what I can say and what I cannot. So it's also hard here.
Yeah, I can. Well, as far as what you can say, I can see someone's already created the Alex motivational poster with your quote. So you now, that may be something that, as far as what you should say things that turn into Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign memes that may last for the next 2 to 3 years on our forums. So congratulations, you may be our first Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign meme person, and I love it. That's great. DevStream 2, mission accomplished. That's awesome. Everyone, we are so glad that you joined us. Alex, thank you so much. Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign is actively in development. We are doing these dev streams to help you kind of understand a little bit about this process. It's been great to have you. Tune in about 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to have dev stream and dev diary number 3, where we're going to be talking about the royal court for the first time and deep diving a little bit into kind of what the royal court is and why we have it and certain aspects of that. Until then, please join our community. Community.knightsofhonor.com, where you can learn more information about the game. You can chat with people. We also have Facebook, we have Discord, we have a lot of different social channels that you can get involved with. We'd love for you to be a part of this, and we're really excited about from what we've been told and what people have shared with us, making this game that's been honestly a long time in coming. And a lot of people, I saw one person, Davinsky said that he'd been waiting since 2007 to see something about this. So we're very excited to be sharing this with you. We hope you've had a good time. And thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time. Take care.
See you guys.